Hello and welcome to the Reef Talk Extra channel, and today I'm going to be reviewing the AI Axis 20 return pump. Now, I've said in the thumbnail that this is a long-term review, and technically that's not quite true because I've only had the AI Axis, or by the time this video goes live, I'll have only had the AI Axis for about a week or so, but I have been using the almost identical TMC Reef Pump Compact for the last year or so, so the underlying pump is actually identical to the AI Axis, so I know how this works and I'll be able to give you my long-term thoughts on how the pump works, and then I'll tell you in the rest of the video about all of the differences and the extra things you get with the AI pump. And the last thing I need to tell you is that this is not a sponsored video. I bought the AI Axis with my own money and I have no connection whatsoever with Aqua Illumination. So with all that being said, let's get stuck in. Now, the first thing to talk about with this pump is the orientation, which is different from almost all return pumps. Most return pumps will sit like this horizontally, whereas the AI Axis is designed to sit vertically. And I think most of these will be used in small all-in-one tanks where there isn't much space in the return pump section, and that means that ordinarily you're restricted to only using very small, very low power return pumps. Whereas if you have them upright, where there's more space, it means that you can fit a much more powerful return pump, which is really handy, especially if you don't intend on using power heads, because this will put out more flow than you would otherwise get from a traditional return pump. And there are a few clever design touches that are worth talking about straight off the bat. So firstly, as you can see, there is a built-in inlet guard. Now, most return pumps don't come with an inlet guard, so hermit crabs, snails, whatever, can get stuck in the impeller, and I have seen that before. It's very annoying. This comes with a built-in inlet guard, and the clever part of this is that the parts around the edge, the slats around the edge of the inlet guard are quite wide, so they draw in a lot of water, whereas the slats on the bottom are very narrow, so they draw in less water, but more to the point. That's the part that you really want to stop things going in, and so that is the part that you want to be nice and small, so it doesn't let snails in. So a nice little design with that. And whilst we're at the bottom here as well, you can see it comes with these rubberized feet, which will dampen vibrations, and I can tell you this is already a very, very quiet pump indeed, but any part of this pump that touches the glass will vibrate, so having silicone style rubberized feet on the bottom dampens that nicely and does a really good job. And also the bottom can be removed very easily for maintenance. See if I make a hash of it now I've said that. There we go, so you can pop the bottom off. Now actually I have seen that you can take the impeller out very easily. I've seen another video where someone did that, but I haven't been able to work out how you do so. There's another stage you need to get that off. I think it is easy, I just don't want to pull it and risk breaking it at this stage, but access for maintenance does look relatively easy. And I can't actually see any difference in the pump itself between the AI Axis and the TMC Reef Pump Compact. These are actually slightly different size pumps. So the TMC is rated at 500 litres per hour, whereas the AI Axis is 700 litres per hour. So I've got a slightly larger version of the AI Axis. But apart from the colour, the only difference I can see is that the AI has one sticker that just says AI Axis, whereas the TMC Reef Pump Compact tells you all the stats on that. And one thing I really like is that it's got a little sticker that says developed in partnership with ZKSJ. Now, ZKSJ is the company that manufactures this return pump, and I really appreciate the transparency from TMC, whereas the AI Axis just says it's an AI Axis. And I've looked in the instruction manual and all over the website, and I can't find anywhere where they say that this is not made by AI. That may or may not matter to you. I just appreciate the transparency on the TMC pump. And another thing I don't like actually is in the box, it comes with all of these spare adapters for Europe, for USA and various other countries, as well as of course the UK adapter. And this is not limited to AI, of course. Any aquarium company that you buy from comes with these superfluous things that you end up throwing away, and they just end up in landfill. And it's not just aquarium companies, it seems any piece of electrical equipment you buy comes with these spare ones that you just end up throwing away. However, I mention it because I recently bought two pieces of equipment from Red Sea, and they only included the UK adapter, so it means you don't end up wasting these. So I'd love it if other companies would follow their lead. Moving on to the control box then, and the mounting is a little bit of a mixed bag. There are two mounting options, one of which is that you screw this little bracket into your cabinet, and this is a really neat bracket. I love this design. It's really easy to line up, so you can line it up dead straight in your cabinet. You just put a couple of screws in, and then there are a couple of very small holes in the bottom of the bracket and a very small hole at the top, so it clips into place really nicely and holds that in place great. So if you have a cabinet to drill this into, it works really well. However, when I say it's a mixed bag, what I mean is that if you don't have a cabinet to drill this into, you're left with this piece of Velcro, and the piece of Velcro is far too big. It's about 3 times the size of the actual let's focus, of the actual bracket itself. So it's just kind of feels a little bit lazy, and it means that this will end up looking a bit messy. And actually I have on my tank that I'm going to be using this for, it doesn't have its own designated cabinet, and I think most kind of small all-in-one tanks won't, so you won't be able to take advantage of screwing this in, and you'll have to have the slightly messy clumpy lump of Velcro. As to the control box itself, it will be very familiar to you if you've already bought AI Nero power heads, because it's the same box. It's a really nice little design. It's got one button which has a really nice tactile feel, so you know you've pressed it. Really good button, and it has a nice little click as well. And the button has a little light on it, and you can use that to cycle through the power modes, and I believe it goes 1%, 20%, 40%, 80%, 100% as you click through. And also you can press and hold, and that will put the pump into feed mode for 10 minutes. Now actually I don't like the feed mode on the AI Axis because it doesn't turn the pump off. When I put my return pump in feed mode, I do it for two reasons. One, because I want the top of the water to be completely still because I want to take photos or videos, and two, because I want to feed my corals, and that means anything that I put into the display tank I don't want going into the filter section and getting removed by filter pads, activated carbon, whatever. So because the AI Axis only puts it into 1%, that means it keeps rotating the water, albeit very gently, and that means that the water surface is disturbed, so it's harder to take good photos, and it means any coral food you put in will go through, or some of the coral food you put in will go through the filter section. Now some people will really like that it keeps going and doesn't completely cut off, but that's just my personal thoughts, and one way or the other I would much prefer to have a feed mode than no feed mode, so that does count as a win for this. And the last thing I'll give it credit before we go and get this set up is the cable length. This has a really long cable from the pump to the control box. I've not measured it out as yet, but I'll put the measurements on the screen down here. Really long cable, firstly from the pump to the control box, which is really important because you might want to put the control box a long way away from the return pump. And on top of that, it also gives you a really long cable from the power supply from the control box all the way to the plug, and that's really handy because you don't always want to put the control box right next to your plug. So I love any piece of equipment that comes with long power supply plugs. Okay, so those are all the design features and things you need to know. Now I'm going to go and get it set up, show you how quiet it is, show you how it works, and wrap up with my final conclusions. Right, hello, it is Future Alex here. Now I've had the pump up and running for about a week at this point, and first off let me tell you about setup. So setup was really easy. You can either use the AI app or the Mobius app. I chose to use the Mobius app, I slightly prefer it, although I'm not a huge fan of the app generally, Mobius, and I don't find it quite so intuitive as something like the Refactory app. However, setup was very easy. It's a Bluetooth connection, not a Wi-Fi connection, and actually I think that's probably better because you don't need to access your return pump when you're away from the house, and so it's more reliable and more simple to use Bluetooth, and I really like how quick and easy it was to get set up and get it running. And while you could argue that you don't need Bluetooth or Wi-Fi, the benefit of the Bluetooth is that you can also link it up to your other devices. Now on the tank I've set it up with, I don't have any Nero 5 power heads, but if you do have any AI Nero power heads or the AI Blade Light, you can set a feed mode so it turns all pumps onto feed mode and the light onto bright white so you can see what you're doing for a water change, for example, or all blues so you can see so you can take good photos. And in terms of the pump's performance, it kicks out 700 litres per hour, which isn't a massive amount, but for a small tank like my little 12-gallon nano tank, it's absolutely loads and more than enough. And in fact, I'm only running the pump at 70% at the moment, just a constant 70% all the time, of course, and the pump is almost completely silent. I can't hear it in the room at all, and in fact I can hear a clock ticking in the room next door over the noise of the pump. You can just about hear something if you put your ear within about 2 or 3 inches of the pump, but it is completely dead silent, so much so that I would absolutely be happy having it in this room, my home office, and I think I might even go as far as to say I'd be okay with it having it in my bedroom, and I don't think it would disturb you at night. It really is that quiet. Now before I give you my long-term thoughts on the TMC pump and how I've gone on with that in terms of reliability, I just want to tell you about one last issue with the feed mode. So I tried to do a water change by putting the Axis into feed mode, but I found that when I removed about 1 litre of water, the water level in my return pump section dropped. That's the first section that drops. So the water level in that section dropped, and then the pump started sucking in air. So I actually have to physically unplug the return pump in order to do a water change. and it's just really frustrating that it can't just have a feed mode where it turns it off completely. Now, to be fair, that's not the end of the world, and I've velcroed the control box to the side of the tank so it's right there, so it's really easy just to whip the power supply out, and that means it will turn off completely so you can do the water change. Although on the point of the velcro it looks a bit ugly, so I think I'm going to end up 3D printing a bracket that I can hang off the back of the tank and set it so it's out of the way. So what about long-term reliability then? Well, the first thing I need to tell you is that although they are made by the same company, ZKSJ in China, it doesn't mean they're exactly the same, and the AI axis is different to the TMC pump. For a start, it's 200 litres per hour more powerful and draws another 2 watts of power, so it's a different model, but also it has a different control box. The TMC control box is not designed by AI and the AI one is, so it's not an apples for apples comparison, and this is not really a proper long-term review of the AI axis. However, I do think it still has some value in telling you how I've got on with the TMC one. Now, for the first 6 months it was totally fine and was also whisper quiet. I had it in this room and I could never hear it, and I didn't even have to turn it off when I'm making these videos, which is fantastic. So absolutely long term it was completely silent. However, it did develop a fault after 6 months, whereby when I put it into feed mode, it then wouldn't disengage from feed mode and it would just bring up an error code that meant it wouldn't turn back on. So I used to have to unplug it, plug it back in and keep doing that until it finally reset itself and went back to working normally. Now, TMC did send me a replacement control box, but that didn't fix the issue, and so actually what I ended up doing was removing it from my tank, replacing that with a Jekod power head, and I relegated the TMC pump to my saltwater mixing bit. Now, to be fair, another 6 months later, the pump is still running and doing a really good job of being my saltwater mixing pump, so I'm finding the actual pump itself to be reliable, and it's just this one underlying issue with the feed mode that seemed to cause me problems. And although it still does come back very occasionally now, it's nothing like as frequent as it was 6 months ago, so it seems to kind of sorted itself out. But I think what I'm really trying to say is that I was still confident enough to buy the AI axis despite my issues with that pump, and I don't expect the axis to have issues long term. Although what I will do is put a pinned comment if I do have any issues, and if you've had the TMC pump or the AI axis, let us know down in the comment section how long you've had it and if you've had any issues or if it's running sweet as a nut. And the last thing I should say is that if you're watching this video 6 months down the line, we're currently January 2024, so if you're watching this 6 months down the line, ask me a question in the comment section and I'll tell you how it's getting on. Now, if you enjoyed this video and want more balanced, independent and unbiased product reviews, make sure you subscribe to the Reef Talk Extra channel, and until next time, happy reefing.